Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hashtag Clocked In with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Hashtag Clocked In with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. We have Sang Kim for episode 4 of Health is Wealth. In the past few episodes, we've been diving into morning routines, why we should get to know our bodies, and all of these different attributes of health where we're just completely missing the ball living in our day-to-day lives. So we have Sang here who sold his company. He's been in the healthcare field for many years, and he's been very experienced. And this is episode 4. So we're going to dive into the difference between Eastern and Western medicine. And what does that even mean? So Sang, how are you doing today?
No, I'm doing great. I just happened to be in Miami today, working down here, enjoying the 23 degrees Celsius temperature. Um, it's nice to feel grounded, just taking your shoes off and just getting rid of those extra electrons in your body. And yeah, just getting energized over this winter time, right? And yeah, the sunlight is fantastic here. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Sang, you brought up an interesting point. We'll get into the Eastern and Western medicine, but like you just brought up grounding. What does that even mean? And is that kind of foo-foo? Like where you have your feet on the ground? What does that actually do?
Yeah, you know what? There's actually been a number of clinical studies with grounding, and it's this idea of we build up electric charge in our bodies, and we need to get rid of them. So if you look at a house has a grounding wire so that, if there's some extra electricity in the house, there is an avenue to get rid of those electrons and get them into the ground and not into the human body and your plants and animals, etc. Right? So we're just like us humans are like an antenna for the earth, and we do absorb a lot of these electrons. And when we ground and walk around on the ground without your bare feet, in your bare feet, right? We do release this energy that's built up in our bodies that can affect all your major systems. It can increase anxiety. You just feel better when you ground. So when you think about it, right? You go on vacation, right? You get your shoes off, you go to the beach, you're in the water, you're grounding your body with the earth, and you feel much more relaxed,
Yeah,
don't you? Right? So you
absolutely.
can do this on purpose by just, take your shoes off and get outside, or you can buy a grounding mat. So if
Yeah.
you're at your desk, right, you plug in a grounding mat, and you can go buy them on Amazon and release the extra electrons and energy in your body and get it out.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Because a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about over the last 4 episodes are literally free exercises we can do to just increase our health and
Yeah,
wealth. Because the
yeah,
main point of this, for the audience to know, is I'm very interested in health. I want people to know about what the real information about health is. And Sang is in incredible shape. He's in his mid 50s, and it's just why not learn from what he's taught? So, Sang, let's dive into we'll start off with Western medicine, and then we'll dive into Eastern, because I've always heard there's two differing things. What even is
Yeah.
Western medicine, and how do people think about that?
Yeah, and you think about Western medicine as, and you know, we've done a great job in dealing with acute issues. So, even 50 years ago, right? One would have a heart attack, and we had to, Western medicine had to get really good at solving for the heart attack. All the things that we need to the surgery, the medications, and dealing with these acute issues that happen. And now we're really good at solving for heart attacks, right? I don't know what the numbers are up to, but majority of people that have heart attacks, so let's say it's 80%, whatever that number is, it's a big number. People survive heart attacks, right? And we're getting really good at that, fixing bones. We're really good at dealing with these acute issues that happen. Um, but people are living longer, so people aren't dying as fast with these acute illnesses. And now, I mean, the system has been set up for acute medicine for decades and decades, but it has been slow to deal with chronic illness. We're living longer in certain areas not so much, but generally longer than 50 years ago,
Yeah.
right? The life expectancy, let's say, was in the 50s or age 60s. Now we're in the early 80s here in North America. So it is much longer from that perspective, right? But the system isn't geared towards dealing with chronic illnesses. So inflammation, um, there's lots of things that we're dealing with type 2 diabetes, see
Okay.
these chronic illnesses that can be managed, and the
Okay.
system isn't geared for that.
And what would be considered a chronic illness? I know you just gave some examples, but like, are these man-made? What is chronic? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So you think about like, let's talk about type 2 diabetes, right?
Okay.
Okay, so it's a sugar issue, right? We're not talking about type 1 where your body does not produce insulin. We're talking about type 2, which is a lifestyle illness, disease
Okay.
that can get managed through proper diet and exercise, and it causes a massive amount of inflammation in the body, and also stresses many different systems, and it's a massive chronic issue.
Yeah.
um the numbers are quite high, that they're quite, you could say over 60% of Americans are considered overweight or obese,
Yeah.
and likely dealing with type 2 diabetes and are on lots of medications for it.
Yeah. And a lot of those medications, they just bring down or numb that feeling that you're having, right?
Yes. So, and not necessarily dealing with the root cause of type 2 diabetes. And essentially, for most people, the root cause is too much sugar, too much refined carbohydrates, too much, refined products, right? So that's really, elevated sugar levels, and
Yeah.
and with high amounts of sugar, right? And then you got all these other symptoms that occur.
Of course, from there. And but that brings up a really interesting thing. So that's Western medicine in the nutshell, where it solves for the problem at hand, but doesn't look for the root of it.
Correct. And I mean, Western medicine is absolutely necessary. Um, I mean, the average time spent at a primary care physician or family doctor in the U.S. is, right around 8 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
So they don't have time to solve the root cause.
Yeah.
So they will be, likely recommending a prescription of some sort,
Yeah.
right? And it does deal with the symptom, but there's side effects to that too, right? That there's side effects to most pharmaceutical drugs as well. So, um, Yeah, I think it's a good idea to let's look for the root cause of some of these issues. And today, yeah, I wanted to highlight. I've taken a DNA test
Yeah.
uh, that highlights my suboptimal genes or pathways to look at, and it's fascinating because through supplementation, you can address these in a more precise way
So
and to figure out what some root cause.
yeah, absolutely. So root causes would be more of Eastern medicine, right?
Correct. Defining the root cause is really this idea of functional medicine, integrative medicine, naturopathic medicine. So this whole category of looking at your environment, looking at your
Yeah.
lifestyle, looking at your nutrition, and now adding into the data is your personal DNA profile to help you to accelerate and find the root cause of some of your symptoms that you're dealing with. Because people, let's say you're on medication for 20, 30 years on antidepressants. Is there a way to potentially eliminate or reduce them? Absolutely. Using your DNA, we can supplement. For example, B9 in the form of methylfolate can
Yeah.
really help with anxiety and depression and things like that.
And that's just fascinating because we all have a lot of limiting beliefs, and we usually like to go to, I mean, I know for me growing up, it was always if I go to the doctor and the doctor says I'm good, then I'm good. But sometimes you hear these stories where people are not good and their doctor says there's nothing wrong with them. So these DNA tests are kind of the starting point of an understanding of who am I really?
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about DNA in general, right? I mean, most of us will have optimal genes in certain areas and, suboptimal genes, and then genes that are really on the poor side.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at it from that perspective, and if you're under a lot of stress, you can turn on these suboptimal genes and they get expressed. And then when they get expressed, a different type of symptom will show up because the
Interesting.
suboptimal genes are getting turned on, right? And
So
this
this
is
is
a process called epigenetics.
okay. So is that where people like lash out, like get upset, angry, all of those emotions, or we're talking about something completely different?
Yeah, I'm talking about um,
Like what would happen if a suboptimal gene came to be? What do you mean by that?
yeah. So yeah, I'll give you an example, right? Okay, so I've got a perfect example is I've got the rest and recovery profile, the genes that affect rest and recovery. For me, they're the worst kind, so they're poor,
Oh,
right? So
really?
you got like normal, right, suboptimal, and then poor.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm on the poor side. So I've got to be very conscious. Like when I do a hard workout, so I'm in my 50s, it's better if have a full day of recovery than going hard 2 days in a row because my body does not recover quickly with really challenging hard workouts or when I'm really
What?
stressed.
And you wrestled at a
Yeah.
very high level. Did you ever
Yeah.
realize this?
No, this is all new to me, right? It's interesting, right? When the more information you have now you can be very strategic on the way
Yeah.
you train as well
Yeah.
with the DNA information in yourself,
Absolutely. Well,
right?
what's the specific test that you took and what does it cover? Because I know whenever I bring up DNA tests to people, they're like 23 and Me, or which is a little
Yeah,
bit different than
yeah,
what this one covers.
yeah.
But
I think
if someone's looking for a test, what do they even look for that it should cover?
yeah, I think you definitely want to look at what's the purpose of this DNA test? What are you trying to get out of it,
Yeah.
right? Um, for example, you take ancestry, right? The purpose of
Okay.
that, right, is to connect your lineage and your family tree, etc.
Yeah.
So there's a specific purpose for that. And 23 and Me, initially they started out, looking at your ethnic origin, right, figuring that out, and they've added a number of other modules from their DNA test, right? Now, the DNA company, the company that I'm associated with, um, what's what's magical about what we're doing, is that they're looking at six major systems, and 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 these systems are in the area of mood and behavior, hormone, fitness, and body type,
Wow.
diet, nutrition, immunity, sleep, and cardiovascular pathways. So these
Oh,
are
wow.
these are like six major systems that can
Yeah.
really help to develop your health blueprint. So now you have these six major systems, and you got great information about that.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that information? Well, if you are dealing with a number of different symptoms, a a certified practitioner that understands how to use this test can actually map out a strategy, a blueprint on how to deal with the symptoms that you're dealing with and target the areas that we need to target. So it's like, okay, what does your body need that it's not getting,
Yeah.
right? And there's specific supplements in the most bioavailable way. And there's, it's actually very complex getting the right amount of the right type of vitamins in the right timing. And this DNA test will help you with that information and working with a clinician to map that out. Okay.
Well, for that
Also,
reason,
what not to eat or ingest into the body, right? And then you layer that with making sure that you're in the right environment,
yeah.
in the right diet, and lifestyle, right? So you got 4 layers of data now to help you solve for the root cause of why your body is doing certain things. Like maybe you don't sleep well.
Yeah.
We can map out a sleep protocol based on your genetics, and then start ruling out all the variables that are affecting your sleep.
Wow.
And it just becomes more precise because now we're not guessing, right?
Yeah.
So
And that's kind of where I think about the everyday uh vitamin, where people sit there and they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna take this everyday vitamin. And I'm like, is that right for you? Is that wrong for you? I don't know. Like,
exactly. And you think about it, right? You take a multivitamin, and first of all, um, like a lot of these multivitamins, um, the ingredients, it's not the best ingredients, right? And quite
okay.
often, let's say the B12, the B12, they're probably using cyanocobalamin. It's derived
Okay.
from cyanide, and
Oh
cyanide is
wow.
toxic to the body, right? So a lot of these multivitamins are using cyanocobalamin instead
Yeah.
of a methylated version, right? Like methylcobalamin or adenosylcobalamin,
Yeah.
right? Which are better for the body, healthier, and more biotransferable to the
Yeah.
body, right? So you got to be careful, right? And and maybe you're wasting your money because now you're taking this multi and you don't need a lot of these other parts. So what we're advocating is you're different than me. That multivitamin has to be more specific to you and your genetics and your symptoms,
Yeah.
and we can target, right? And actually we have the ability now with a couple of our programs to make a customized vitamin for you based on
Oh,
your
wow.
genetic, your gender, your weight. So it's customly compounded, which is a
Wow.
game changer. There's not that many companies that I'm aware of that are doing that
Yeah.
based on your genetics.
Well, it's this idea that most people don't even know what's right and wrong, what they need or they don't need. And
Yeah.
like what I'm hearing from a lot of people is they're like, yeah, I'm starting to hop on TRT. And I'm like, you're 25. Why are we taking testosterone? Like, and I'm like, just lift more. Like, there's natural ways of doing these things, but most of us
Yes.
don't even really know ourselves. So what do you think most like the main purpose of the DNA test? Like, what do you uncover?
Yeah, like I think you know, so it's different levels. I mean, I've talked to probably, let's say, 50, 60 people, and I've done their DNA tests sort of overview with them, like our
Yeah,
free consult. And it's an interesting process. So we've got people that have a lot of health issues and lots of symptoms showing up, and I'll go through their DNA test, and it all makes sense to me because it's all connected to their suboptimal genes, right?
really.
Yeah. So let's say, I had a case where they weren't sleeping well, and they were dealing with a lot of hormonal issues, right? Like a woman, right?
Okay.
Their cardiovascular pathways were suboptimal, and their hormone genes are like they're more prone to estrogen toxicity,
Okay.
right? And 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 this woman isn't sleeping well, and it's quite obvious because hormones affect sleep, quite
Okay.
a bit. So making sure the hormones are in the right zone for the right person, can really change someone's sleep, like literally overnight, um, by looking at, potentially maybe they are a good candidate for bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Maybe they're a good candidate for some other supplementation, right?
Interesting.
Right. And then there's a whole sleep protocol of supplements as well that can really help. And like, for example, getting the right amount of magnesium bisglycinate before bed can
Interesting.
help out quite a bit, and getting the right amount. And let's say it could be 200 to 400 milligrams, depending on what the clinician feels like the patient needs, right? And that,
Yeah.
yeah, these kind of tweaks, but knowing their DNA can really help us to map out a protocol that is going to help solve for these root causes and these symptoms that are showing up.
And most people are living with this and don't even realize.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and I'll give you, I'll give you a really interesting example of my profile. Something that affects everybody, right? Like, we talk about vitamin D and how important vitamin D is, and well, you think about it, vitamin D is so important that it's the only vitamin that is created by the human body, the only one.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Oh,
That's how
wow.
important it is. Every single cell has a receptor for vitamin D. That's important. That you got to get
Yeah.
this figured out, because if you don't have that figured out, I mean, it could affect your sleep, it could
Yeah.
affect your heart, it could affect your hormones. Like there's just so many different pathways. So that is like an essential pathway to figure out. And it's so nuanced, right? Like, so you could have a practitioner say, okay, you need to take vitamin D. Oh, that's great. Okay, and here's your amount. And you could be
Yeah.
doing that for years, and then your vitamin D levels don't go up at all, right?
Really?
You think, okay, why is that? Well, well, you might have a suboptimal gene for zinc, and zinc is connected to the vitamin D pathway, and it helps to make it sticky and bind together.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so, and then magnesium, if you're really low in magnesium, like most of the population, magnesium is involved in 300, 400 different processes in the
Yeah.
body. Like it's a lot, right? It's not one or
Yeah.
two, it's hundreds,
Yeah.
right? So my vitamin D protocol is vitamin D and K2, and K2 helps to make sure that the calcium is going to the bones and teeth as opposed to my arteries and clogging up my arteries,
Oh, wow.
right? And then I've got magnesium that helps with the whole vitamin D process. And then I have zinc. So I've got a zinc spray. So my vitamin D strategy is four components to it for it to
Wow.
work optimally, right?
Wow.
Now, I didn't know that without the DNA test because my DNA, my D3 numbers have always been very low every time I've tested, like
Yeah.
let's say every 6 months. It's like, why is it so low? I
Yeah.
can't figure this out. Well, now I have my information and my D3 numbers are rising and going, they're in a good place now because I figured out through with the DNA test and talking with clinicians that I need a different strategy. It's just not taking vitamin D.
Yeah.
It's
Because it's not,
specific to me.
yeah, it's not always that simple. And what's the difference in your way of feeling? Like, do you feel different?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I've been optimizing my health for a long time,
Yeah.
right? Like seriously, probably the last decade,
Okay.
right? So so you deal with all the low-hanging fruit first,
What
right?
would the
And
low
that's
hanging fruit
where
be?
that's where you get a lot of the big jump, like just eating properly, right?
Okay.
Exercising, etc.
Okay.
Well, get you these big jumps. Now it's this fine tuning,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I feel like so amazing, and then the other times it's just millimeters, but I know physiologically I'm feeling better because my numbers are improving.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Um, so you got to continue this process because it's complex. It's not that easy. And unfortunately, most 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 doctors, I would say clinicians that aren't using a DNA test can't be that precise because we're all different,
Yes.
right? So yeah, you should take vitamin D. Yeah, that's great. Okay, and here's the amount, right? And just okay, can we? Someone's knocking on my door. Can I
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
just
One
hold,
sec.
hold for?
Yeah. So saying you were mentioning about the DNA test, low hanging fruit, the things that made you really feel better. And what were some of those things?
Yeah, so fairly recently, I mean, I've got a suboptimal gene for dopamine, like
Interesting.
the porous gene, and serotonin is suboptimal. So those are two areas, right? And dopamine is connected to ADHD tendencies.
Oh, really?
Um, yes, absolutely, because somebody with a low dopamine, they're you think about it, are seeking risky activities, so which makes sense. I'm into rock climbing, I have no problems doing risky activities to get that dopamine hit, right? So you got to be really mindful of that. But the one area of serotonin, what's really helped me recently is making sure that I'm taking the right type of B12 and B9 to help with anxiety and depression. So this area
Really?
is huge. Yeah. And I've been feeling much better with a decent dose of B9. And my genes really like, I mean, the methylated folate, which is um, a really important version for the body to receive.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, this is a huge thing because working with a clinician and getting the right amount can really help you with anxiety and depression. This whole
Yeah.
area and getting your
Now, is this
vitamins in the right
is
zone.
is this different than the people who get anxiety medicine and depression medicine? That now it's specific gene focus? Is there a difference there?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a DNA PGX test. So basically, we look at your genes and we'll look at the medications that you're currently on, and as well figure out what medications will work better for you based on your genetics.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and this is a game changer, and we have lots of clinicians using this right now to
Yeah.
figure um, the most optimal prescription drugs to use.
So this is going out around the country, kind of.
Yes, yes, it's getting more and more popular as people are awakened to the fact that they want to get off of certain medications. They've been on medications for a while, and their symptoms really haven't changed,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, okay, why am I on all these meds, and I've got all these other side effects? So what else can I do?
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's look at a different way. Let's solve for this from a different perspective using one of the most innovative technologies that we've seen is through DNA testing and the grouping of genes that affect certain pathways.
Yeah. And is this would you say it's for everyone or anyone, or and is it a one-time thing or a multi-time? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, what's the great thing about taking the DNA 360 test is that you do it once and you got it for your life. This is who
Wow.
you are. Now you've got the blueprint. You've got your health
Yeah.
roadmap right in front of you,
Yeah.
and we're able to, recommend the supplements that you should be on that's specific for you,
Yeah.
and and figure out if you do have symptoms and illnesses. Let's get down to it. Let's
Yeah.
figure out, that you actually your hormone profile is very, very suboptimal. So maybe right now you do need some, hormone replacement therapy, you know. Yeah, maybe you do need to take a lot more magnesium because of these symptoms that you have, right? I've got to take a lot of magnesium because I've got, all these wrestling injuries. My muscles are always tight and achy,
Yeah.
and quite often you got to experiment. So I'm taking magnesium bisglycinate for sleep, but
Yeah.
also magnesium chloride for my muscle relaxation. And oh my God, it works, right? Because I've got better information with my DNA test to map out a potential solution for these symptoms.
And it's who you really are, and it's not someone
Yes.
sitting there going like, "This looks like somebody else. Let me try this out,"
Yeah. Yeah.
which
And
is huge.
yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I'm really sensitive to mold, pesticides, and toxins, right?
Yeah.
So for
And did you
years,
know that before?
I sensed that, right? Through a functional medicine doctor I was working with, I was getting these low migraine headaches. And I thought, okay, this is weird. So got me on an elimination diet and I removed coffee. The headaches went away. And then I drank coffee, like on day 31. So I removed coffee for 30 days. On day 31, I had coffee, instant headache.
Wow.
You know, and my wife was saying at the time, yeah, what? That's BS. What are you talking about? Right? I kind of knew this, but I have proof. I've got
Yeah.
the worst genes for dealing with molds and toxins. And there's mold in coffee. Most coffee has mold because of the way coffee is processed.
Wow.
Drying process and it gets wet, it dries out, it gets wet. So that's this back and forth of wet and dryness creates an environment for mold to proliferate.
Interesting.
And that's just what and it
There's
made
so
so much
many
sense.
details.
Yeah, yeah. So now I'm not feeling, sort of like judging myself. Oh yeah, you're just on this thing, you're
You
just
don't feel bad
imagining
about
it.
being like different. Like you're not different, but it's
Yeah,
it's
right.
you open up the book to really understand where you're at.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I had certain friends that would make fun of me because I don't drink coffee. Well,
Yeah.
actually, it's poisoning me, you know, or or saying, how come you don't drink a lot? Well, genetically, I do not detoxify alcohol and transport it and break it down well. So it's toxic in my body. So I don't have the enzymes to break down alcohol. So I flush red and I get drunk fast. And, yeah, my friends would make fun of me. But the reality is this is my genetics. This is who I am. So
Yeah.
I don't drink a lot because I create a lot of inflammation every time I drink.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of symptoms out there for everybody knowing along the way, but you just might not have the understanding. And these
Yeah.
tests can help with that understanding.
Yeah, and there's a real deep sense of knowing yourself. Maybe you sort of know it, but after doing the DNA test, it's almost like you can love yourself for who you are and not justify it. It's kind of a weird thing, right? It's like this is who I am, and I've got to treat my body, my mind, my soul with grace and beauty and respect it. Don't punish it with
Yeah,
throwing in all this crap and inflaming it, causing stress to the body. Why are you not helping your body to be the best version of itself?
absolutely. I love that.
Right?
S- Saying, where can people learn more about you? I'm going to put it all in the show notes. But
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram, Sang Kim Official. Um, I'm on TikTok, and certainly if anyone is interested in the DNA test, I have a discount code
I'll
saying
put that in
Kim.
the show notes. Yeah,
Yes, and I will personally go over your DNA test with you, and go through the initial consult and give you a sense of what's possible for you. And it's
absolutely.
an amazing journey, right? This is all about you, who you are.
It's a journey of learning. Saying, I
Yeah,
appreciate you. This is episode 4 of Health is Wealth, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
that's awesome.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there and have a great day and keep clocking in.